Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vainglory8 powered by VIS. I'm your host, Dragonborn, and today we're bringing you guys the off-stream match that won't be on the main Vainglory channel, but will be here live on VIS League. I'm joined by Denominator, my co-caster today, to get into it. We're kind of excited. This is going to be a fun matchup.
It indeed ought to be, and we have the powerhouse Cloud9 versus Tempo Storm, who, being relatively new to the VG8, we are in our third week, but they've really put on a good performance since they've been here. They have some big names, obviously, that they bring to the table that, you can't really take lightly of. Lost Boy Toff getting in here for some games, definitely one of the star players of the team. It should be pretty exciting. This is going to be a clash of, Gabe Vizel and Lost Boy Toff for the longest time were really viewed as the best captains in North America, and, to see them go against each other again now should be pretty fun.
Absolutely. And so we'll be getting into this in just a few moments as we look to get the draft started. But Cloud9, they have been known to not only play mechanically at the highest level, but also have some really great drafting and synergy. Now, I did see on Twitter their main analyst is taking a little bit of a vacation, but, they have other analysts. They have a whole team that helps them with these things. Really, do you expect any difference from that kind of dominance from the beginning to end of their game plan?
Overall, Cloud9 is incredibly consistent. I don't think missing, one analyst in this scenario is going to really put them at such a disadvantage that, it's going to be a massive throw or anything. I definitely think that the talent Tempo can bring to the table can take games off of Cloud9. It's just going to be a difficult fight the whole way along. Again, just because Cloud9 in general has shown they are very, very consistent. Up there with Team Solo Mid. They're probably the two most consistent teams in North America right now.
This is for sure. So looking to go into this first week here in the week number 3. I'm sorry, this first series of week number 3 up against Tempo Storm is going to be very interesting. All right, Tempo Storm already eating to bonus time here on this first ban. So I actually got to check to see. It looks like, yeah, there might have been a disconnect here. May have to pause real quickly as it used up a considerable amount of time. Yeah, it does look like there is a slight issue, guys, with Tempo Storm getting in here. We are going to pause this real quick and go for a reset to get into this. All right, so resetting the draft. We are going to get started here again. Cloud9 should be able to just pick this Vox up again. Tempo Storm hopefully is back.
Ideally, they should be, and it does indeed. They are here, so pretty standard so far. We've seen a lot of Vox bans and a lot of Grace bans, so I'm not surprised they came off the table. Again, a lot of teams not putting as huge of a priority on him. I do think it's something you have to consider still, and as we see the side of Tempo Storm pick it up here, we already have the Lyra on the table to me, which is pretty dangerous going into the Baron, or well, for the Baron at least. They do ban away the Glaive, which is another good hero that is good into Baron. But with this Lyra's engage potential, if Cloud9 can put together an aggressive composition, and it being Cloud9, I very well expect them to, they can definitely run something like a Blackfeather or a Kashka into this Baron, get the dive. They'll prioritize armor in the early game, which will help them snowball the Baron. And I definitely think that they should be able to take down this Baron pretty reasonable. Again, Baron, if he makes it to the late game, definitely a very strong pick that Tempo can take and get out of control with. But again, with this Lyra already, Cloud9 can put together a very, very aggressive composition.
Yeah, I actually really like how this is working out for Tempo Storm so far. With, the Lyra first pick, you don't have the fear of, being taken off here. You need to check real quickly. It does look like I have an issue with streaming. So we are back. Slight issue. Don't see any drop frames, but I do see that I did lose connection on stream. So I do apologize, everyone. Make sure you get the restart in. But, with Lyra first, you don't have to worry about the Catherine. So the Glaive ban was a really heads-up play by Tempo Storm. And then picking the Arden, that's a very strong comfort pick for Lost Boy.
It is indeed, and it's definitely one of the heroes that we've seen him play for years now, and this is really one of those signature heroes where he always seems to find his way onto a highlight role on this hero, and to me, it just feels very Lost Boy tough. And we do have a Black Feather Ringo combination come out of Cloud9 here, and I do like this. So Ringo has a lot of single target burst damage, and we discussed it earlier when we were spectating EU. Is the Crystal Black Feather in the jungle can provide a lot of poke and a lot of tankiness going into this Baron. It does look like a Crystal Kestrel gets picked up by Tempo, and this can be a huge pick. So with Hyde on this Kestrel, if he can play underneath the Baron, it is a little risky with that poke coming through out of the CP Black Feather. You gotta be careful not to line up for him. But if he can put down a good active camo, bait the Black Feather in, or even the Lyra portal in, and then get a multiple stun out of that active camo, they can definitely put a huge hurt on this Black Feather, whether he gets that on point tankiness or not, because the burst damage that comes out of Kestrel and Baron can just take him off the map if he's not careful. So
yeah, absolutely. There's really not a bad draft at all for the side of Tempo Storm. I do like the Black Feather, but I think that we've seen sometimes it can be a little challenging if you don't get it on point. There's that risk. And seeing the Ringo pulled out, we know Old School can play Ringo about as well as anybody. But hey, we're into the game for game number 1, so let's jump right in and see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and we already have some armor picked up out of Old School on this Ringo, obviously respecting the damage that Baron's able to put out. Now, what I do want to make point of is Gatsby did pick up Shield, which is typical to what we see a Black Feather run. So I'm wondering if he, thought maybe this is going to be Old School in the lane. I got to reduce the damage from these on points as they come out. You're not going to get as much damage reduction into this Ringo. The Achilles shot doesn't do that much damage, and you're going to have to worry about the Twirling Silver getting that heavy damage down on you. And there we see it right there. I mean, this Ringo has a lot of early game dominance over Baron because, again, he just has such a good single target damage.
The speed, the attack speed, the movement. Can reposition. Lyra definitely helps as well with that repositioning. Sigil is more than just a heal. It gives you that speed boost as well. So absolutely a decent starter actually for Cloud9 here. Is they're not, you expect them to have a stronger early game.
I do expect them to have a stronger early game, and again, if they can get their positioning right into this Baron in the late game, I think if you can eliminate Baron's use of the jump jets via a Arcane Passage and a Bright Bulwark, then Ringo should be able to burst him down because he's not going to get those 2 automatic bonus shots while repositioning. And that is absolutely huge for Baron's kit. Again, he's very burst heavy, and if you can survive that initial burst or eliminate that initial burst, then Baron can be pretty easy to take down.
Yeah, it's going to be a big chunk of burst coming out from Tempo Storm in the way of Kestrel and the Baron, so a lot of protection is going to be... Gabe Vizzle is going to have to really be playing his mind out here just to make sure he keeps his 2 carries alive. We know Old School and Joseph can be very aggressive, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. I Love Joseph does rotate here with the Black Feather, looks to try to get something onto this, does not... Oh, Idius doesn't get the Glimmer shot locked onto it, so the Elder Treant does go over to I Love Joseph. With that heal, he's able to nicely position here and move into place. Oh, gets onto Hideous. A couple more hits should do it, as Hideous will drop. And already, I Love Joseph, 3 crystal bits, is definitely going to hurt here in just 2 minutes in the game.
Yeah, and again, they've seen the Kestrel go into the bush, and just out of natural instinct, they knew, okay, well, we need to go to the top of this bush, walk around the active camo that is definitely there. They didn't even need to flare it. They just walked around it, got the damage down on Kestrel, and, again, this is Cloud9 just being very consistent. When you play predictably, they're going to just take advantage of every mistake you make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now, again, and Gabe Vizzle doing a great job. He already, we typically see Lyra's build the health portion of the fountain first because it does give you more health on your Imperial Sigil. Gabe Vizzle, to me, this is smart because of the early game dominance a Kestrel can have with the long range of the poke damage, has gone into the tier 2 shields, so he's going to be able to block and take a lot more of that crystal damage, which we'll probably see here.
You see all three members of Tempo Storm coming up to the lane, looking to push this up here. Baron clears pretty well mid-game, but early game can be a little bit challenging until he gets a few items. Looks they might find Old School here. Jump Jets finishes the deal. 2 shots come out, and that is going to be the second kill of the game, but first kill for Tempo Storm. As Gaspy, great heads up. And the Jump Jets are the biggest challenge with Baron. They give him the most power as regard with burst, because otherwise he's a pretty slow attack dealer. So, you know, to be able to get that right in position. Old School just a little bit too far forward, taking too much damage. I don't think he had gone back and shopped yet, though, at that point. So he now finally is able to go back, pick up a few items, and should be able to deal a little bit more damage here. As you see it actually right now, he's freezing the lane. He does not want this to push too far out, giving Baron any kind of advantage.
Right, and that's really where you got to capitalize, is getting this Baron behind on farm early. He's not that far behind, but as this Blackfeather hits level 8 and gets that increased range, gets the increased barrier out of his on point, I definitely think they have a lot of engaged potential. Again, Blackfeather able to get a couple pokes down and then dive, and then while Baron is focusing on the Blackfeather that's in his face, Ringo is going to be able to use the movement speed that he has to his advantage and get in position where he can get a lot of single target damage down onto Gaspy.
Yeah, and Tempo's been rotating up to the lane pretty consistently here and doing a good job of it, not giving up too much farm in the process. So they're able to manage it with their farm coming up here. And one shot, one kill does come out. Gabe Vizzle just takes it. Not a lot of damage there, as we see a nice back and forth trade between both these teams before they decide to rotate down for the jungle rotation. But yeah, both teams playing pretty even. I think, you know, it kind of, not surprisingly, a little bit passive from both teams, specifically Tempo, knowing that their real potential is going to really come to fruition where the Baron gets that first or second tier 3. That's a small power spike. Really, the second one is when you start to see Baron come online. But it's not really necessarily an early game composition from Cloud9 either. The Blackfeather, the CB Blackfeather will do an insane amount of burst and barrier, which is great. And you actually talked about this composition specifically. If you're going to have this Blackfeather going in CP against the Baron, can give you an insane amount of barrier.
Yeah, and again, any way that you can limit Baron's burst potential, whether it be through healing, damage reduction, anything of the sort, you can really take advantage of his slow attack speed after. Now, later in the game, I definitely think we'll see a monocle and a tornado trigger built on this Baron, but through the mid game up until that last game point, that's typically going to be the last item that a Baron builds as far as offensive items, is that tornado trigger. So Cloud9 has to handle the mid game well and really react to the fact that Gaspy won't be able to dish out a lot of damage if they can get right on him. It's if he can complete that fourth item, though. If Cloud9 can't close out the game quick enough, there definitely is potential for Tempo Storm to get through the mid part of the game, make it to the late game. And again, if Baron plays around the Kestrel traps, that's really going to save him from the Blackfeather as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and there we have it. Our early game rotation still kind of in full effect here, as we're only at the 6-minute mark, but both teams not playing necessarily aggressive, and the junglers really play a big part into that. Kestrel could be aggressive, but mostly going to be a very effective poke damage dealer throughout the most of this game. And Blackfeather as well does need a few items to be able to be more effective. He's going to be relying heavily on that barrier. Gauntlet comes out, though. Nice stun. Old School. I mean, he does take that ion cannon to the face. A lot of damage going out. Oh, he dies before the Hellfire Brew comes to effect. And you do see there's Gaspy. He chases I Love Joseph. He gets the kill. And giving up Baron here may have been a huge mistake for the team of Cloud9, because they are getting wrecked. And this is only at 7 minutes. This Baron is going to be doing more and more damage as the game goes on.
I think what really won the fight there, and wow, Gaspy diving deep for that kill. They do find Gabe Vizzle there in the back, and that should be turret number 1 for Tempo Storm. And the real winner of that fight there was Lost Boy Toph. Great gauntlet coming in, getting the stun down on Old School.
Yeah.
Old School does find Gaspy, though, so absolutely huge play from him there. Toph comes in, secures the kill. Again, great gauntlet placement by Lost Boy Toph there, though. Getting that stun underneath the ion cannon, underneath the glimmer shots. Just super good coordination out of that team right there.
Indeed, Joseph's going to start pushing into the jungle. A little bit of breather room here for the rotation, considering that most of Tempo had to go back, so he's able to get that Treant, no problem. And Lost Boy couldn't really do too much about it. But yeah, I mean, good job by Old School. He is, you know, if you isolate him in a 1v1, he's going to win those fights mostly. So Tempo Storm has to continue to be the aggressors, and it really is going to be on the back of Lost Boy Top. He really has the knowledge and the know-how to be able to initiate these fights correctly, and what he does, you can see right there just from that last team fight, how effective Tempo Storm can be.
Right, again, these aren't names that you can just take lightly. If you give them a little bit of leeway, they will take it and use it against you, no questions asked. And now that Gabe Wizzle is, I'm sorry, I Love Joseph is level 8, he's level 9, but he has the overdrive on his on point from being level 8. He'll have that increased range, he'll have that increased barrier, and this is where we're going to be able to see Cloud9 really start to accelerate their aggression. Again, it's going to be based around Gabe Wizzle engaging, though. If he can limit the Baron's movement, then Old School can delete the Baron because, again, the increased attack speed from Ringo's Twirling Silver makes it so that he doesn't have a huge requirement for putting gold into items to get attack speed.
Huge kill coming over for Cloud9. They're looking to continue that push. It's only Lost Boy Toph left over as insane amount of damage, really starting with that Hellfire Brew. We saw last game, Old School wasn't able to get that Hellfire Brew procced all the way. This time he does, and you can see just how much damage he's able to do with that and then go into the fight and clean it up. You do see Cloud9 pretty low. Gabe Wizzle takes a one-shot, one kill, but doesn't drop. And, of course, that is going to be a nice sigil from the side of Cloud9 to get them all healed back up and repositioned. And nice fight, really, by Cloud9. They're going to even up the objectives here and take a gold lead, in fact, as Tempo Storm now playing on the back heel.
Yeah, and, you know, getting that first turret down was definitely a nice gold swing in their pocket. They didn't really have time to collect on the gold mine as well. But, again, this is really their time to shine is this mid-game. And then if they can find another kill, they can get a turret. Ringo has enough damage to push a turret by himself. And Blackfeather Lyra can take the gold mine. There is a candy on it now, so we have to be careful. Joseph, very, very smart buy to me. So he has picked up this Slumbering Husk.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier about if Baron plays around the active camos, then it can really be a danger for this Blackfeather. But the Slumbering Husk, even if he does get stunned up, he's going to reduce a lot of damage. Gatsby getting taken incredibly low, and unfortunately a gauntlet is burned defensively. And that is unfortunately not how you want to use it, especially since Blackfeather was pretty deep in there. Now he can Rose Offensive out, but again, you can you know, bait out abilities there. You could bait out a fountain, and it's just it's hard to say. It's just you don't want to use your gauntlets defensively.
You don't, and you really want to be the initiators there. Just commenting on Hideous is actually finding a way to, you know, stick a thread through the needle, essentially, right between I Love Joseph and Old School. Doesn't get the one shot to connect there. You know, you got to be the aggressors if you're Tempo, and we saw how effective they are when they were, but it's early game, so it's challenging because, you know, Cloud9 understands their advantage, is trying to take advantage of it, so they're going to find Tempo Storm out of position once in a while. And when they do, they're going to initiate on it. Tempo can be okay being defensive a little bit, but when they do get to the point where they're ready to fight, they do have to be the ones initiating that. So it's something to keep in mind as this game unfolds, continues. I Love Joseph, you know, with that buy, feels really confident he can go into these fights quickly. He doesn't even proc his Slumbering Husk yet. They need to kind of bait him in quickly for the Slumbering Husk to try to get that proc quickly and used, because really the burst potential from Tempo right now is very high, even in this early game. And I Love Joseph able to absorb a good chunk of it.
Yeah, and I think it was a very good call to try to get the gold miner there. As I think they were hoping Tempo Storm would overextend just a little bit further. Again, the Ringo really has to be in range to get the damage down. And Old School is going with a very burst-heavy build against this Baron. He sees that Gatsby has committed into going towards the block, so he's going towards an Aegis. So what that essentially means with Baron, the meta of Baron at least being a 4-item offensive Baron, that doesn't give him any room for armor. So Old School is committed to going with a Sorrow Blade Monocle, and it looks like he's probably going to build into a Tornado Trigger for his 3rd item, and then probably start working towards a Metal Jacket, and that's going to give him a massive amount of single target damage. if they get Baron out of the fight early, this Crystal Kestrel is not going to have any ability to follow up the damage. But again, if Hideous can play around the fight and get the poke damage down onto Old School, Gatsby can jump in and get like an execute style kill with the jump jets.
Yeah, we saw that actually play out a few times where when Gatsby does jump in off of an engagement from Tempo Storm, they are able to be pretty successful here. Cloud9, though, with the extra goldie, a little bit better itemization, they're able to move confidently through the jungle. Great vision as well. So it's going to be hard for Tempo Storm to move freely, and you can see them a little bit more defensive, understanding they don't want to lose an objective disadvantage, that they currently have a neutral objective advantage, and they don't want to really let that slip.
Yeah, Gabe Vizzle really smart here with, again, we discussed that before. Lyra has had these changes where when you pop the Imperial Sigil, you actually get 70% of the burst, 75% of the burst heal back. The one-shot, one-kill comes through on Old School for 500 damage, and the burst heal from that Imperial Sigil heals for 600, so...
Ooh, nice Gauntlet is initiating, but they're going to get the Crystal Miner all the same. Ion Cannon, too late to do much of anything. Actually, with that blow, Cloud9 going to just sit here tightly and actually contest this jungle, and they're going to be able to get out of here without taking very much damage at all. Not a really great rotation from Tempo Storm, but more importantly, Cloud9 just countering it. There is going to be another engagement as they look to come in. There is the Sigil. Might have been a little bit miscommunication as Gabe Vizzle went in when the rest of his team was pulling back. Fountain has to be used very early, and now Tempo Storm is looking to move even further. There comes the jump jets right onto I Love Joseph, takes a huge chunk of damage, and it is going to be Cloud9 going to have to completely disengage from that fight. Unfortunately, a little bit of a miscommunication. Gabe Vizzle went in while his two carries kind of hesitated, and that did allow Tempo Storm to put down some damage.
Yeah, and that arcane passage seemed a little maybe miscommunicated to me. It was Baron already had himself a chance to reposition, and they literally just waited for them to come through the arcane passage. So definitely something we got to work on. And again, the gauntlet timing needs to be lined up with the Ion Cannon. That one real big ace fight that we've seen Tempo Storm pick up. The gauntlet picked up 3 stuns, and the Ion Cannon came down with 3 hits. And that's really what put Cloud9 in the position to lose that fight. You know, all of the cooldowns were burned early on, and that's just the kind of coordination we need to see out of Tempo Storm if they do want to win this game. Is they have to be communicating. They have to have an understanding. Okay, my ult's up, mine's not. Maybe we shouldn't fight. You know, it's just the pieces have to come together correctly if you want that chain to work.
Especially early game when your margin of error is lower. Now, that one-shot one-kill did burn the Slumbering Husk on the I Love Joseph. That's a big deal. It's a couple, was it 20-some seconds before that comes right back up. So they're looking to go in. Tempo Storm does have a slight advantage here if they could go in and get the initiation, but there's no gauntlet used. They decide ultimately not to. And you can see that Slumbering Husk is going to be back up soon. May even be by the next fight. So a little bit of an opportunity by Tempo Storm slipping away here and deciding ultimately not to engage.
Yeah, and again, definitely a risky situation, especially since the composition of Tempo Storm should be wanting to fight backwards. You know, you want to bait people into those traps. So it's kind of difficult to engage really heavily on a Crystal Kestrel going this late into the game, especially since Gabe Vizzle is starting to build up so much health. He does have double vision, and this is something that we see out of a lot of captains lately, is they'll have the contraption, but they'll also have a stack of flares on them at the same time.
Nice, and that works comboed with the Vanguard, by the way. Takes no damage from that Hellfire Brew.
Yep, and unfortunately, the one-shot, one-kill does go wide, but there is an opportunity here with that active camo down, and actually did a lot less damage than I thought it was going to, despite having the Shatterglass and the... Well, I guess he has a Frostburn, not a Broken Myth. So Old School doesn't take too much hurt from that. And with Hideous backing, this leaves a big opportunity for C9 here. They have a lot of Kraken damage. So this is definitely something that they can force a fight out of Tempo Storm. And if they can catch Hideous on this Kestrel, then it's going to be lights out for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, and we actually see Cloud9's really just using the Kraken as bait. They understand they're probably not going to be able to get a clean take whatsoever. But with the great vision that they have, it's really hard for Tempo Storm to position without their knowledge. So at this point, they weren't able to get the kill yet. They're really looking for that one kill to pick off one of the members of Tempo Storm so they can then complete the Kraken take. And Tempo, honestly, playing it smart, very conservatively, not engaging far enough to give him a kill.
Yeah, and again, Tempo Storm wants to fight backwards. They want to be able to bait people into the traps and get the follow-up damage. And that's why Cloud9 is prioritizing fighting around this Kraken so much, because it forces Tempo Storm to fight forward instead of backwards. And it looks like Baron actually does grab that health camp, and Crystal Sentry might be going down here.
We got 8 seconds till the gauntlet comes out. Lost Boy probably looking here. They're going to take this Crystal Sentry, and unfortunately, Tempo Storm's going to have to contest, and that's an elimination already. I mean, we see these top teams, they really prioritize that Crystal Sentry when they can. It becomes such a nuisance in the late game, really dismotivates you. And now with that recall, Tempo Storm forced to recall and give up a Kraken here. And it's very unfortunate for them. Cloud9 just so aware of the potential they have as far as timing, that when they get that little sliver of opening, they're able to take it.
Yeah, and a clean one-shot, one-kill there does find I Love Joseph. It does burn his Slumbering Husk and also gets rid of his Ace buff. Well, the Kraken buff, at least. Gabe Vizzle with the Imperial Sigil is able to heal him back up, but again, that Slumbering Husk is down for a couple more seconds, so this is really Hyde's opportunity to get some damage down. But with that Husk coming back up, it's going to get a little more dangerous for Tempo Storm as the game goes on.
Yeah, they're definitely going to lose out on a few turrets here. They may be able to get the second one as well. Cloud9 be able to pick this up. And right now, it's up to Tempo to try to get the kill. They do get onto Hideous. Oh, and eliminate. Great job by I Love Joseph. Just goes in absolutely devastatingly into the side of Cloud9. And of course, now it's going to be Gaspy trying to reposition. They're going to find one kill, but the Kraken there just barreling away on the second turret. No problem whatsoever. Gaspy's going to heal up. I think C9's got to be a little careful here. They need to respect the fact that they will take an insane amount of damage if Gaspy does reposition. So have to be careful. Gaspy gets another on point. 2 in a row onto Gaspy. So I Love Joseph has to feel pretty safe there with those barriers. But there it goes in. Gaspy finds 2 shots. So much damage is delivered. But what Cloud9 able to get this third turret with this Kraken thanks to that distraction.
Yeah, and Joseph doesn't have any armor, so once that Slumbering Husk is burnt, Gaspy does so much damage, and that's what we saw there. Gaspy baited out the Slumbering Husk with one basic attack, and then after the effect worn off, they jumped in heavily and almost took down Joseph with one burst from the jump jets.
It was an insane amount of damage. But you are seeing Gabe Vizzle now going huge into the vision. Contraption and a full set of flares. Definitely letting you know. This is something that you see when you're feeling confident and you know you can win the fights. You want that vision so that you can keep an eye and actually get the right engagement. You want to catch out the enemy team unaware and jump in at the moment notice. So these extra flares, doesn't need to invest in scout traps. He's got plenty of those, plus that contraption to boot. Might have caught Lost Boy out just a tad. One shot, one kill comes out. Oh, aggressive play by the side of Gabe Vizzle here. They're going to catch Lost Boy completely out of position. Gaspy's on the bottom side, taking all his damage. Gaspy drops. Cloud9, they are going to clean this up here. One turret left. They should be able to push all the way in and take this last turret.
Oh, a good stun comes out of Hyde there, saving Lost Boy's life. Actually, I do think
might have saved the
that
game.
Cloud9 it really might have, because if Arden would have went down, Crystal Kestrel doesn't maintain enough damage to prevent this Ringo, who has a very, very heavy burst build with this Sorrow Blade, Tyrant's Monocle, and Tornado Trigger. That turret would have melted, so saving Lost Boy's life there actually probably did save them the game. Now, it's not going to save them for long, as this Kraken is very likely going to go over to Cloud9. They are not close enough, and they are taking it very, very fast. But it does give them a second chance at life, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it does come out very quick Kraken take, uncontested, unfortunately, for Tempo Storm, and this is going to result in Cloud9's going to have a very easy push. There's only one turret left. They really just need to clear that, end the game, not focus on even giving up a few kills in the process. Gaspy hasn't completed his last 4th tier 3 item, but he is close.
Well, he's a little ways away. If they can pick up an ace here and get Kraken gold, then I think he should be able to complete a 4th tier 3 item. However, I'm not sure the game's going to last that long. Cloud9 has done so good. Again, we discussed it at the beginning. They need to fight around the cooldown of jump jets, and we see Old School and Gabe Izzle waiting here. There's the arcane passage, and they're going to come in behind Gatsby.
Yeah, this is a good gauntlet defensively, but doesn't prevent C9 from coming in and doing an insane amount of damage. A lot comes out from Tempo, but it's going to be too little too late, as one more Kraken hit or an auto attack will complete it. There is the Ringo to end the turret, and they're not able to even get a kill in the process. So at this point, it's going to be just a few seconds. There it is. That's the win. Cloud9 takes Tempo Storm down in game 1.
And again, this Cloud9 team has just been so consistent. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody. I do, however, think Tempo Storm put up a huge performance and played this game incredibly well. Again, teams like Cloud9 and TSM and Gangstars, these teams that practice so heavily, they've trained themselves to be able to deal with these Baron comps. And again, once your Baron is off the table and they focus heavily around those jump jets again, there's just no damage for this Crystal Kestrel to follow up in an actual fight. Yes, it provides a lot of poke, but it doesn't actually maintain the damage to clean up a 2v3, even if the enemies are low.
You're absolutely right, and that's something that is very challenging for these teams that maybe don't have quite the same level of competition, maybe not realizing they might be getting outdrafted. I actually thought that Tempo Storm had a good draft, and they played it well for a good portion of the game, but we saw this with so many teams is once they see their openings, teams that have been practicing, they're very aware of a rotational advantage. We actually saw this in EU when we saw you know, Reliable Union going up against their opponent. People are just very aware of, oh, I got this advantage, let's take this objective. And sometimes a lot of it comes down to taking out that Crystal Sentry very early on, which is you know, something Cloud9 very much was aware of and took advantage of clearly. So with that, guys, we are now going to get ready for game number 2 here in just a few seconds as we look to get into the draft. But Cloud9 looking very strong, and I think as we switch over to B side here, Cloud9 maybe might even have a little bit easier time in the draft.
I definitely think they're going to have a little bit easier time in the draft. Again, I don't really think Cloud9 is going to play Baron. If all goes smoothly and Baron is a smart pick, I definitely think they will. You know, again, it's a smart team. But I think Cloud9 really has aggression on their side in almost every game that we see from them. So, you know, again, I love Joseph. Revered as one of the best junglers in the game. Old School revered as one of the best laners in the game. Gabe Izzle, in my opinion, definitely the #1 captain in North America right now. This team looks to be unstoppable, and it's so hard to draft against them because they can play so many heroes. They put so much time into practicing so that no matter how a draft goes, they're comfortable on the picks they wind up on.
Well, it's definitely paid off so far, as Cloud9 sitting pretty safe there in the 2nd place. Now we are just going to be waiting for a second. There we have it. So we're going to jump into it, guys. Game number 2 is about to start here with the draft.
The draft begins.
Get in here.
And Tempo Storm is going to ban the Baron. I find this interesting. I mean, clearly they don't want to first pick it, but I agree with you. I'm not sure Cloud9's strategy this week is to pick the Baron, at least not in the Tempo Storm. All the same, though, is very strong pick. Grumpjug comes out as the ban, and Tempo Storm is going to get Grace. Cloud9 actually probably should have considered the fact that they would have, you know, they had the play with either the Grace or the Grumpjaw. I actually think the Grace is a better pick because you're really not showing your hand.
I do think the Grace is a strong pick. I think giving Vox over to Old School is a very, very interesting way to go about it. They do ban away the Kestrel, and this is a smart thing to do because it really provides a lot of flexibility. Both Gatsby and Hyde can play this Kestrel with great success. And this is interesting to me. So we actually see a Kashka come out for the 2nd pick on the side of Cloud9. Now, what this opens up is this opens up a Grace Baptiste pick for the side of Tempo Storm if they are comfortable with it. Baptiste does incredibly well into Kashka. Knowing Gabe Izzle, I would almost think highly enough to say that if there is a Batiste pick here, they may even flex this Koshka to a captain position. Now, I know that sounds so terribly off meta, but they do end up picking up Glaive and Batiste, who do both function well into Koshka. It being Gabe Vizzle, if this was any other captain, I wouldn't be thinking this, but this being Gabe Vizzle, I think they could potentially run something like a Sky here into the Batiste. She just outranges him. It's very hard for him to lock her down, especially once she gets that Frostburn. And Cloud9 definitely has a lot of time on their side to decide what they do want to pick here. And it ends up being a Flicker, so this is actually really interesting. So the Batiste and Glaive do handle pretty well into the Koshka, but again, this is old school on Vox, so this is one of the picks that we've known and seen him play for several patches. With a Flicker combination, if the Batiste can use his bad mojos properly and reveal the enemies, it's going to rely on scout traps and vision. But if the Batiste can knock somebody out of the cloak, they can definitely capitalize on getting onto the Vox or taking the Koshka out early on surprise.
This is actually a huge pickup. We haven't seen Flicker played very much at all in any of the regions, and to see Flicker come out in this specific case, I think that they wanted to put I Love Joseph on the Koshka way more than they wanted to try to finesse in that more tanky support Koshka. And I could really appreciate that, although there is a lot to say, but you're not going up against necessarily like a Vox where you want to get on that back line and pop an Atlas. You're going up against the Glaive, who's going to be a frontline carry anyways. So really, I think that the advantage is that they just want to be able to get into a fight, get into the middle of it, and blow it up from inside with all that attack. A lot of burst, really, if you think about it. We are jumping into this game, guys, in just a few moments. I mean, very interesting draft from Cloud9. I have to say, I really think that Tempo Storm won this draft, but the mechanical play from Cloud9 can be so great and the synergy so great, it's still very likely Cloud9 will take this game.
Yeah, it's very hard to say who won this draft. So now the one thing that they do have is Flicker handles really well into compositions that don't have spammable area of effect damage. Skill shots such as like a Scarf, a Sky with a forward barrage, a Gwen with her buckshot. Those heroes that can reveal her easily and have those abilities up frequently do really, really well into Flicker, and that's really how we've seen Flicker not be very viable. He's had his time where he did do very well. I think it's a lot of people had to adjust to him. Lance does really well into Flicker, but obviously with it being a strong pocket pick, they have got this situation now where the range is so short on Batiste that he can't really poke out the invisible Flicker. And we do see Gabe Vizzle being insanely aggressive here and does come in and steals away that back camp. So now this game, as it goes on, is going to get very, very interesting very quickly. Gabe Vizzle, once he gets to that level 2, is going to have that slow, which pairs really, really well with Koshka.
And actually, it's really worth mentioning, because I hadn't really thought about this, is picking up the Flicker does allow you to counter this Grace early game. You're able to get right past the Grace, because otherwise the Grace will spot you, right? That's one of the powers of Grace, is their ability to move all the way to the enemy jungle, get so much information about what your rotation is without going down or being at risk of dying. But this time, Flicker actually gets a scout trap over there, takes away one of the healers. They're unsuccessful at stealing away that Treant from Cloud9. Now they're trying to go for the Elder Treant, but this is risky. You've got Koshka and Flicker looking to come in there. There's a nice root. Hideous is locked up. He's going to drop. And we do see Lost Boy Top really close to taking down I Love Joseph, but it's going to be too little. And, oh, another nice root. Locks up Lost Boy. Gabe Vizzle just unbelievable on Flicker so far.
He's doing fantastic, and again, Gabe Vizzle, to me, is the best roamer in North America right now, the best captain in North America. He's so mechanically skilled, and he just, when it comes down to his ability to shot call, it is absolutely amazing, and I believe he stole away that health treant again, and is now 1v1ing Hyde on this captain.
Wow.
With great success. This is...
And Flicker does a lot of damage.
Oh my god, and he finds the kill over the wall. And that is a third kill going over to Cloud9, and there's no way he gets out of here.
This is going to be just an absolute slaughter right now. And with the whole team going down, just with Lost Boy left, Lost Boy does finally secure one of those treants away from it. But man, early game, Gabe Vizzle really hard to deal with here. Nice use of his A, man. It's just unbelievable how he is able to survive so much. He might go down here. Oh my gosh, he goes invisible again. Lost Boy can't even find that. And then of course you do see I Love Joseph finds another kill and gets away. I'm not sure Gaspy's going to be able to get into there in time. Oh, it's going to be Lost Boy finding the kill.
It is Lost Boy finding his first kill and actually gets a second one onto Gabe Vizzle. So, again, Lost Boy constantly one of these people that we see able to make the plays to really carry a lot of weight from his team. He is a absolute star player to watch, this game and in his games to come. So, I definitely like him on this Grace pick, and the Grace-Baptiste combination I can see working really well into the late game. If they can take Old School out first in a fight. So the Vox, with the typical Poison Shiv, very likely Tension Bow Breaking Point build, it's going to give him a lot of damage and ability to ramp up in fights. And we see Gabe Vizzle does get hit by the bad mojo there, but man, the damage he is able to put down, and does find a root on the hide as well. Old School sitting up a little bit in farm, and I Love Joseph sitting up a little in farm as well. We are sitting at about a 1,500 gold lead already for Cloud9.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty strong lead here already. Now, granted, I do expect this Baptiste and Grace combo to scale pretty well, to start to be able to counter some of this aggression. There's a lot of crowd control from this team, so Cloud9's strategy here was just early. Go in as hard as you can, as early as you can, so that you mitigate that advantage that Tempo might get here. So, I would say from the draft perspective, Tempo drafted very well, but you could see Cloud9, from a play perspective, they're able to take their composition and play it better right now, and clearly showing why they're one of the best teams in North America.
Right, and that boils a lot down to just their mechanics are so above par to the typical NA team, as well as their coordination is absolutely huge. And that's one thing that we saw when they played in Mobile Masters against Rox Armada. Their coordination is just absolutely insane, and even if they lose the draft, that third sense of knowing what your team is going to do before they know what they're going to do is like a whole new skill in the game that they're just able to capitalize on over and over again.
Well, right now they're looking to capitalize on potentially getting in front of this turret here. They keep pushing the lane, so this Vox having no problem against the Glaive. Is the farm also way ahead of Gaspy and I Love Joseph leading by a decent amount. I really just actually I Love Joseph and Hideous are pretty close in farm. I should mention that, but
they are pretty close in farm, but we are sitting up 4-1 on Joseph. He is level 6, working his way to level 7, and we are not level 6 on this Baptiste yet. We are getting there, but not quite. And this is that real spot that we say that Koshka takes off. She is super aggressive in the early game, but once she does get this long lockdown stun, Hyde has been forced to build into a reflex block already, and is very likely going to use that if Old School gets in a dangerous position.
We see fountains coming out from both teams. Nice engagement between the two. We see I Love Joseph going back. It almost finds Hideous, as back and forth trade and damage was pretty even for a decent part of the early fight, but Cloud9 coming out on top. Again, now they're going to be able to keep pushing the lane forward and take away this jungle farm, and playing this very well, not overcommitting too. And this is something that these pro players, these young guys like I Love Joseph and Old School, had to learn. They're very talented mechanically, but very aggressive, and now they've really balanced with this team synergy, the ability to kind of go into the fight at the right moment. Gabriel is not even level 6 yet. I have to imagine that there's Cloud9's real intention here with this flicker is early game, yes, but also the ability to get in. Oh, Old School is dropped. I Love Joseph not able to come into the fight soon enough. There's a stun. Oh, catches I Love Joseph one more time. You're not going to see the Glaive Afterburn come in just yet. So Cloud9 actually getting an uncharacteristic over position that results in a kill on Old School.
Yeah, I think they weren't prepared for the vision that, man, and Joseph does go down, and that may be a dead Gabe Vizzle too. It is indeed. Tempo Storm finding some really good kills there. We saw we saw Gabe drop that scout trap and then noticed that they had vision there. So Temple Storm was actually ready for Gabe Bizzle to rotate up and seen it was only Gabe Bizzle. And they took the immediate response to use the afterburn to get Old School out of position. And once he burned his reflex block onto the afterburn, that allowed Hyde to come in with the Ordained and really lock him down. And you do not want to be locked down into that small area with a glaive.
Absolutely not. One of the things I think that I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the fear that came out that pushed I Love Joseph into the turret, and then there was that stun from Lost Boy. Great combo, and this is something that Temple has to do, and we saw in last game, when they do combine their abilities together and chain them, they really are effective in some of these team fights. They just have to be kind of playing this perfectly almost. Very small margin of error for Tempo Storm to be able to pull out a victory here.
Again, if they can catch Old School out first in the fight, the Koshka is going to fall off, especially into this Baptiste. Baptiste can provide such a huge amount of burst damage when you use the Soul Shards and the Bad Mojo correctly. Vision does find Gabe Bizzle here, and this may be potential kill for the side of Tempo. It does go over. Gabe does burn the fountain, trying to survive. So that is going to be a little bit of a cooldown now for the side of Cloud9. And again, this Temple Storm roster, you cannot take lightly. You have to take them seriously because they can take games off of this Cloud9 team. They're
going in on Old School. He does take a lot of damage. He ends up falling. Hideous on this Baptiste, able to get the kill as the Ordained really wasn't, was able to hold him in place for long enough for them to get that damage on there. Nice. Lost Boy does miss his stun, but did try to reposition I Love Joseph. There's Flicker coming in. I Love Joseph Bird doing a ton of burst, but it's going to be I Love Joseph and Gabe falling low, and Tempo Storm winning that trade as well. It was a 3v2, so it favored Tempo right out the gate. They're not going to be able to get anything for it, but right now, Tempo definitely being the aggressors and winning all these trades.
Yeah, and again, Baptiste and Grace are so good into Koshka that it just makes Koshka such a difficult pick. And I think that's really why I wanted to see this Koshka flexed into the roam and pick a carry that has a little more flexibility into the composition that Temple Storm has put together. Now, again, as the game goes on, this Vox definitely can scale out of control. We do see Old School has committed to the Tension Bow now. So that is going to be a Tension Bow, Poison Shiv, Breaking Point Vox. And the attack speed and damage ramp up that can bring to the table, if he's able to survive the fights, can, I mean, definitely take over a fight in a 3v1 scenario.
Nice reflex block by I Love Joseph. He got out of that Ordain and actually was able to get a lot of damage onto Tempo. Healing up a little bit, but it looks like Cloud9, they're pushing this lane up. Definitely feeling like they need to get this lane pushed up. May even look for an engagement. Lost Boy Toff went down the shop, but now the whole Tempo Storm roster is going to come up here. This is going to force Cloud9 to move to their backside of their lane bush, and going to force them to do rotate. There is the ultimate coming in from Gabe Bizzle. Might have been a little too early. They're not quite in position. I don't think they're going to get anything for this. Oh, but they find Hideous. Hideous down in the jungle. He's going to get eliminated as three-man team up, and so finally able to take that ultimate and make some use out of it. Is going to be a huge win for Cloud9, but not able to get more than that. I felt like they were kind of hoping maybe. I'm surprised they didn't try to take advantage of catching out in the lane maybe, but there's a lot of vision in the lane, and really heads up by Lost Boy to make sure that they aren't able to sneak up behind their turret in these fights. Lost Boy takes a lot of damage. He goes very low. Now it is Glaive almost drops. Heal comes out. Does save him. Fallon's been used. And, oh, it is going to be Lost Boy dropping. And Cloud9, they're going all the way. Ordain is somewhat defensive, but it's not going to stop Hideous from dropping. Gatsby's the last man standing, but Cloud9's going to get the ace. And just like that, Cloud9 playing kind of on the defensive end for most of this early part of the game. Now able to take out the second turret, and they're being very aggressive. It looks like, again, they have just opened this game wide open.
Yeah, and again, their synergy and just their mechanical skill in general. We discussed that the Baptiste and Grace are incredibly good into the Koshka, but Cloud9 is so good at recognizing the mistakes of an enemy team, recognizing someone being a little too out of position, recognized burned cooldowns, communicating those burned cooldowns. They can really play anything into anything, in my opinion, with some success. Now, there is always going to be that time where, draft does heavily affect the outcome of a game, but that's not something we see very often against Cloud9. Draft usually is not able to keep them from winning.
Yeah, Gabe might have gotten cut out there. He was able to get away, had to get out of a sticky situation. He had actually burned his Crucible to get out of that Ordain, which is a little unfortunate as we go into this next team fight. Kashka comes in, nice block, but Gaspy's taking a lot of damage, able to throw back Old School, but look at that. The Flicker able to root Lost Boy top, and they secure the ace. Cloud9 just absolutely dominating here after the 10-minute mark. They're going to clear out this jungle without any problem, and this is very much going to be a third turret going down for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, we see the prioritization on the Aegis here out of both I Love Joseph and Old School. And Old School has completed that breaking point now. And that is an absolutely huge power spike for this Vox. With his Sonic Zooms dealing weapon damage, it allows him to build up breaking point stacks incredibly quickly. So that's really the advantage of this Vox, as well as the Sonic Zoom can get him out of a Holy Nova from this Grace.
So a lot of crowd control from Tempo, but we've really seen a change of pace as we get another fight going on. The stun does land, though. Locks up I Love Joseph and Gabe Vizzle, but they find the kill anyways. Lost Boy Top's down for the count. It's going to be a kill onto Gaspy. Oh, there's a sliver of health left, but they chase, and they are still able to secure it. Another ace going over to Cloud9. And you're absolutely right. They just find ways, no matter what their composition is, to get wins over this bottom half of the Vainglory8 teams. I really shouldn't call them bottom half. I really should call everybody but the top two. But kind of risky, when you start going into the semifinals and finals here in Vainglory8, it can be challenging. But with that, they are going to secure this win here. There's nothing Lost Boy Top can do. The turret is, all the turrets are got down. The Vein Crystal is exposed. And Cloud9, just a few hits away, they are going to get game number 2 and move on to the semifinals.
And again, that last fight, Lost Boy was just a little too far out. And again, Cloud9 sees that, recognizes that opportunity, and jumps right on it. They find a clean kill. And then at that point, again, there's no way for a Baptiste to get out once he's into a fight. He has absolutely no mobility. The only way that he can possibly get out is by using that Fearsome Shade, and it did not land in that last fight, and they were just able to keep pushing through. And, that's a game going over to Cloud9, a sub 15-minute game found by Cloud9.
Unfortunate for Tempo Storm. I really feel like they drafted well. Looks like they did their homework, trying to play into it. Cloud9, they're just coming out with stuff that I don't think too many people in North America are ready to face. Gabe Vizzle, early game, this Flicker was unstoppable, and it actually was perfect for what they were going up against, considering you had the Grace come out. And so their awareness, their map awareness, their early game presence awareness, the rotation awareness, the whole picture for Cloud9 is looking really, really great. And so they move on to the semifinals to see who they're going to face next here in the Vainglory8. What a day. I mean, this kind of wraps it up for us tonight.
It does indeed, and make sure you guys stop in next week as well. We'll have the off-stream games, as always, on your Saturday for the Vainglory8.
Absolutely.
Powered by this league.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Every single Saturday, make sure you guys tune in, same place, same time. We do Europe and North America. So just whatever matches off-stream, you can check the Vainglory schedule at vainglory-esports.com and just see which ones. The ones with the asterisk are the ones we've got. With that, guys, just make sure you guys hit the follow and follow us on Twitter at visleague.com. VIS League, and of course go to our website visleague.com. FYI, guys, we do have the Challenger playoffs for North America starting this week. And so if you think the Vainglory8 is exciting, this is going to be the most exciting, intense playoffs we've probably ever seen in Challengers, because we've got 8 of some of the most competitively close teams we've seen in Challengers in quite some time. Even looking back at last season, when they were very, very strong teams in Challengers then as well. This set, guys, is even more competitive. Make sure you guys tune in. We will be going live on Tuesday and Wednesday starting at 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you guys all then. And with that, good night.